if you haven't been paying attention to this, it really is time to start. This came to mind as I was listening to Stephen Bartlett and Roman Yampolsky talking about, are we living in a simulation? Welcome to Frontline Women, a show dedicated to women on the leading edge of change and culture renewal in America. I'm Dalisia Coppersmith, and I'll be your host and guide as we explore emerging issues and opportunities for women to lead side by side with men every day. So let's get off the sideline and onto the front line right now. Welcome back to Frontline Women. This week, we are going to have a continuation of a conversation from my last solo episode where I shared with you this thought from Geoffrey Hinton, who is the godfather of AI, that humanity needed an AI mother or AI mothers programmed in to save our existence. And so I just kind of introduced that idea and thought, if women had stepped up sooner in every way that we possibly could, or had been allowed to, if you want to call it that, we might not be facing the existential crisis we are right now. So at the very least, we could do what we can do right now and stem the tide of this rise of the machines without any sort of constraints on it. So if you didn't catch that episode, go back, I think it's 2 episodes ago, and it really was just the start of a conversation. And what's so interesting is this week, Stephen Bartlett on Diary of a CEO. I love that podcast. Definitely go over there and subscribe because it's fantastic every single time. So it was kind of timely that this week, Stephen covered AI security with Dr. Roman Yampolsky. I'm going to link it for you in the show notes. So what they talked about was how quickly AI is going to take over our existence. I mean, even to the point where we could face 99% unemployment at some point in the very near future. So this is an important topic for all of us to be paying attention to. You don't need to be a computer programmer to care about this because it is going to affect you. So either you will need to master skills in using AI in your current career, or you're going to need to find another career. One way or another, if you haven't been paying attention to this, it really is time to start. But the question that I have for you today, we're not going to try to solve, the problem of AI taking all of our jobs right now. But I have a question for you that I hope guides you to look at your life and your work differently. This came to mind as I was listening to Stephen Bartlett and Roman Yampolsky talking about what if this is all a simulation. And that's a topic that's been pondered for a couple of decades now. There's a famous panel discussion on that. There have been many, but there's a famous one that kind of kicked this all off. And that is, are we living in a simulation? Wouldn't it be interesting to learn someday that none of this was real, that it was all just a simulation, and that there were literally billions of other simulations going on simultaneously where we were living and acting out the things that we are right now? So, you could split one of many ways, but let's just say one of 2 ways. You could seek greater purpose and impact, greater satisfaction in life, or you could decide, oh, it's a simulation. I can do anything I want. And your evil angels could take over and cause you to do some pretty terrible things. Let's just go with the former. And let's say if this is all a simulation, you would be free to break out of the constraints, I guess, that you have around what you've been told you should do or what you can do. And you might live completely differently if you realize like taking a little bit of risk is not that big of a deal. If you fail, it's okay. This is all a simulation. So that's the discussion today. How would you live if you found out that this was all just a simulation? So I went to, I'm not reliant on ChatGPT or any other AI models, at least not yet in my life. But I do think it is interesting because AI knows what I do in my business for sure, because it's out there on the internet. AI knows the topics I'm interested in because of Google searches and other things. And so I often will go to ChatGPT or another source and I'll say, based on what you know about me, and then I'll give it a prompt and just to see what it says. Now, I'm not going to take it as life coaching advice or business coaching advice, but it's interesting to see what AI reflects back to me based on what it already knows about me. So I suggest you try it sometime. Don't go doing what it says. All right. It's just a way to brainstorm or to get outside perspective based on all the information that's out there. So I put in there, based on what you know about me, how do you think my work and creative life would change if I knew that I was living in a simulation? How about that? What would I do differently if I knew that I was living in a simulation? And so it gave me several ideas. And I wanted to share the top two with you because I thought it was pretty interesting. It said that I might go into tech and digital innovation. The focus would be virtual reality, augmented reality, AI, and digital environments. Because I'm naturally curious and experimental by nature, I'd be intrigued with the idea of creating immersive digital spaces where people can explore and experience new realities. Well, that was the number one thing that ChatGPT came up with, and nailed it. I would be interested in that. Even in my work developing leaders, if I could put leaders in simulated environments, that's being done in different places, and frankly, that's basically what we're doing when we present case studies or we do role plays and things like that. But you could enrich that so much. You could give them a virtual reality experience where they could experiment with their responses to people, the way that they present, all kinds of things you could do with that in a simulated environment. I think ChatGPT nailed that. So it would be the design of virtual worlds or interactive simulations. The second one that it came up with is philosophy of consciousness and AI ethics. So philosophy of the mind, AI ethics, simulation theory. I could pursue a philosophy degree or study AI ethics, contributing to important questions about the moral and existential ramifications of simulated or artificial worlds. Yeah, that would be really interesting to me. So when we hear things like, in 5 to 20 years, AI could wipe out humanity. Well, who knows? I mean, that may happen. I would hope not. Certainly, if more women step up to lead globally, where decisions are being made about the use of AI, about ethics and whatnot, maybe that won't happen at all. But we should probably be preparing for that. What would I do in this world that humanity and artificial intelligence hopefully can work together rather than artificial intelligence or super intelligence doing away with humanity? So how would you live? What would you do? That's my question for you today. If you knew that your entire life, everyone around you, everything around you is part of a simulation, and there are many, many simulations going on. Roman Yampolsky in the interview said you could be running billions of simulations simultaneously. Even that conversation that they were having, he said this could be happening simultaneously, billions of different ways. So if you knew that, how would that change your work and your life? Would you go into something that you've never explored before, or would you be bolder in the career field that you have chosen? For me, I would probably just really tear down the walls of leadership development, executive coaching has to be done in this way. And I'd say, no, it doesn't. There are so many different ways to do this, and to partner with AI without it taking over, without it stripping away the things that I could add to it. And so being a designer of simulated experiences could be interesting. I would still be in the same career field, but I would not feel like there was such a small playing field for me. I would be bolder about speaking in public forums about where I think we should go with AI, how AI is going to, because it will, impact governments. I mean, it already is, right? So what would you do with your work specifically? Would you stay in the same career field, or would you decide to go somewhere else to a totally different career field? Would you decide not to work? Because some people might say, if this is a simulation, there's no point in working. And one of the interesting things in their conversation was that, people might feel so disengaged because there's no point to anything. But how long would that last before the human mind and heart and soul decided that, I have to do something? I'm here. I can't just sit on the couch. So even if you had a period of disengagement from work, what do you think you would do at that time? How would you spend your days? And the second piece of this is, what would be different in your relationships? Do you think that you would just take off and not be around your family anymore? Or would you conduct yourself differently with your family, knowing this is a simulation and there could be other versions of you that you are being compared to? So would you get a little bit competitive about it? Just thinking, wait a second, if there are other versions of me, then there are other versions of me that are doing the wrong thing, leaving, a good spouse, for example, or deciding not to take care of my kids. And so I think I'll be a better version than that. So how would it change your relationships? What would you go home and say? Or what would you go home and not say? So think of your life today like a simulation where you can experiment, you can play, you can take some risks, and you can be very intentional with this round of the simulation. Okay, that's it for this week. I hope that caused you to ponder some important things today. Just let that soak through in your mind. And at some point today, I hope something really occurs to you about what you would do if this was a simulation. See you next week.